Hey everybody, this is Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. Today we're going to be talking about narcissism. This is a highly requested video by many of you, and I guess for two reasons. Either you hear the word narcissism a lot and you wonder if that applies to anybody you know, or you know someone who is a narcissist and you want to know how to handle that in your own life. We're going to talk about both. What narcissism is, what it is not, and how do you deal with a narcissist in your own life. So I want to start off with some clarity about what narcissism is and what it is not. There's a couple different words at play and they all sound exactly alike, but they all mean different things depending on your context. So first of all, what is a narcissist? A narcissist is a person who displays narcissistic tendencies. Yes, that's right. I use the word in its own definition. I'm going to give you a couple of definitions for narcissism, and we'll go from there. Narcissism has two definitions that I am going to use. The first one is a psychological definition, and that is self-centeredness arising from failure to distinguish self from external objects. Definition number two is in the dictionary as the psychoanalysis definition, and that's slightly different, and that one reads, excessive interest in or admiration of oneself or one's physical appearance. Some hallmarks of narcissists are selfishness, entitlement, lack of empathy, need for admiration. These things are not terrible in and of themselves. Narcissism is extreme self-centeredness. We all have narcissistic times in our lives where we are extremely self-centered to the detriment of relationships with other people. So someone can be a narcissist without having narcissistic personality disorder. Narcissistic personality disorder is an actual diagnosis that is used by mental health and medical professionals to describe a pathological existence of any of those or all of those attributes. The reason it's important for you to understand the difference is because as a lay person, you are not qualified to diagnose someone with narcissistic personality disorder. You can say you think that they have it, but you do not have the ability to decide for someone whether or not they have it. There are also many therapists who tread lightly with things like narcissistic personality disorder because there are so many things that go into that. That is not a diagnosis we take lightly, and that's not a diagnosis that fits in all of the places where people are exhibiting narcissistic personalities. The things that come out in us that are labeled as narcissistic are not always coming from the place of having that personality disorder. Instead, it's coming from a place of self-preservation. It's coming from historic neglect of self. And so the person enters into a period of time where they are focusing on themselves. And that can be to the detriment of some relationships. But in reality, some relationships that is detrimental to needed to go. Every time you express boundaries in your life, it is possible for someone who doesn't like your boundaries to call you a narcissist. When you display self-care and tell somebody that you are not going to take on their problems right now, or you're not going to, for the fifth day in a row, go over and comfort that friend who is having a problem with the person they're dating. You can set up those boundaries. It is also, from their perspective then, going to look like you are interested in yourself and your own needs over the needs of everyone else. Deep down in all of us is the need to survive, is the instinct to preserve self. The need to preserve self and the need to put self in front of other people does not make someone a narcissist. It maybe means they have good boundaries, or maybe it doesn't, but it still does not diagnose them with narcissistic personality disorder. So there's a couple different things at play here. First of all, your understanding of the person. Is their good boundaries making you feel not okay and therefore you think they're narcissistic? Are they making you feel like your boundaries are not okay because it doesn't take care of them? Are you wondering if you're a narcissist or if someone in your life is? All of those things really do also boil down to what do you have riding on that answer? People are always asking if I can do a video on narcissistic personality disorder, and here it is. I've stalled because this is complicated. It is not always so cut and dry. And even when people do have actual diagnosable narcissistic personality disorder, it does not mean you can't be in a relationship with them. It means that there are things that you're going to need to do to stay healthy. People who are codependent on a narcissist can usually exhibit aspects of narcissistic personality disorder, because they are learning those behaviors and mimicking those behaviors and being engaged in that behavior on their primary relationship. And so outside of that, they could be playing out those dynamics with other people also. That doesn't necessarily mean they are the narcissist, but are they? Because they're displaying the tendencies, right? So it is just never that cut and dry. Why is this such a requested video? I think the reason for that is because that word is thrown out there so much, maybe in appropriate ways and maybe in not appropriate ways. I will tell you that it is unethical for any mental health professional to diagnose a real life person that they have never spent any clinical time with. To recap, narcissism is the extensive focus on self to the detriment of relationships with other people. Whether that's good or bad depends on how it plays out in someone's life. And as you've heard me say before, there is a term that we use called clinically significant distress. It's a difficult term when it becomes applied to someone who is legitimately a narcissist, because they're not going to feel like their problems are the thing causing them clinically significant distress. They're going to assume it is the lack of support and understanding and love they're getting from people in their lives. It becomes a little bit of a difficult thing to maneuver. Okay, section 2, how do I deal with a narcissist in my life? Step number 1 is recognizing the signs. Signs of a narcissistic person playing out their issues with you are always having to be right, never taking blame for anything in their own lives, making you out to be the heavy or the bad guy in things. Lying is another big one, and about little things, about things that don't really matter, as well as about big things. Misrepresenting events in order to show themselves in the best possible light. It's important to understand that these things by themselves do not always indicate a narcissist in your life. And so that's why we go to step 2, find a support system. Find someone that you trust and kind of lay some of these things out to them and say, does this sound accurate? Step number 3 is going to be to set your boundaries. If this person that you are dealing with is not in your everyday life, maybe it's an ex and you share a child, maybe it's a parent and you are no longer living in their home, it's a friend that you've had forever and you don't really want to get rid of, but also you don't want to give into anymore. Setting your boundaries could be as simple as, for you, picking the hours of the day when you will answer their requests. It could mean reminding yourself of what is true in the relationship and not allowing them to convince you otherwise. In many cases, you will need to make those boundaries clear to the other person. Right, so when you do set boundaries, you should be ready for pretty strong pushback. That's because someone who is used to being able to violate your boundaries on a regular basis is not going to take kindly to having boundaries set. They're going to feel like you're telling them they did something wrong, or you don't care about them anymore, or you don't have time for them, or they're too much trouble. This is where, again, you need to mean your boundaries, because that cannot dissuade you from what you're doing. If you are of the mindset this person is going to be staying in your life, if it is somebody that is not removable from your life, expect that pushback and just be fine with it. When someone who is a narcissist promises you something or says something, you need to require immediate action. That goes especially for people who share custody of children, especially for people who are in familial relationships with someone. If they say, I understand what you're saying and I'm going to try to do better, that is not a good enough answer. A narcissist will tell you whatever they want to tell you in order to get back on your good side. So words can't actually mean anything then, and you're going to require action, and not just action, not just I'll try harder, that is action, right? But immediate action. How are you going to try harder, and when are you going to start it? What is a step that you plan to take, and when will you do it? You are going to need to begin to require immediate action. And the last one is just a reminder for everyone in the situation. You and they may need some help. Getting professional help for resetting of boundaries, for untangling some of those knots that you've been handed psychologically by a person whose intent was to twist you up so that you don't know which way is up. The trust building and the understanding of self and the understanding of others that has to happen in the right way in order for you to have good relationships with other people. That has all been sort of undone in a relationship with a narcissist. And so I do encourage you to try to seek out some professional help if you have been in a long-term relationship in any way with someone who is a narcissist. Well, that's about it for today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening to this information on narcissism, and I hope that has been helpful. Don't forget to like and drop a comment, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notifications for when I post new videos, and I will see you again soon. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other.